Within 16 hours, the Indian Army's para brigade had landed in Malé and driven out the mercenaries. Now, joining me to discuss this today is someone who had a ringside view of events that day. Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia, former Director General Military Operations, who was part of Operation Cactus. General Bhatia, welcome to the News 9 Plus show.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you, News 9. Always great to be on your show.
I want to take you back to November of 1988. Just, this operation that was launched from cold start, executed in 16 hours. Tell us why this is such a big deal. I mean, you normally think that militaries are prepared for such eventualities, but in 16 hours, how did that happen?
See, it was November 1988, and we were not really, either tasked, rolled to carry out such operations. The focus in 1988 was Sri Lanka. There was
Right.
IPK.
Of course, you had Op Pavan on.
Yeah, Op Pavan, which was July 1987. So all our focus and energies were on Sri Lanka, and suddenly Maldives comes up on the on the stage after a coup which happened on the 3rd November morning, and we were told within hours to move and to rescue the president of Maldives, who was a duly elected president on,
Yes.
on 3rd of November. He was sworn in 12th of November. And we honestly did not know where Maldives exactly was and what was the layout of Maldives, or where
Yes.
Malé was, where Halule was, whether Halule and Malé were different islands also.
Right.
And the beauty is that we were given a task and we completed the mission well in time. And we even had they also requested the US, and the US came in on the 4th late afternoon.
Right.
And there was still about 4 to 5 hours sailing time away from Malé.
Yes.
So that was the speed, the precision. It was a surgical operation, executed exceedingly well, with no collateral damage,
Right.
with no casualties to own troops.
Right, and as you mentioned, the most important part of it is that it was a cold start operation. Like literally, you went in blind, you launched, and arrived in Malé in a matter of hours, and you did that. Normally, militaries prepare for these kind of eventualities, right? They rehearse and they do that. They set up mock buildings, like we hear about what the Israelis did in Entebbe. But this one was a ultimate example of the army going in completely cold and saving the day, as was the case. But General Bhatia, you were a major then in the 6th Para Brigade.
Yeah, I was the brigade major of the 50 Para Brigade.
Right.
So brigade major, like chief operations officer, and 6th Para was the battalion, which is, of course, I also belong to 6th Para.
Yes.
We spearheaded the operation along with the Para Brigade.
Right. And General Bhatia, I have to ask you this now. 35 years later, India and Maldives, the relations are literally at the lowest they have been in over 3 decades. Why do you think the Maldivian ministers reacted the way they did a few days back to Prime Minister Modi's tweets? And how does that, pain you as a veteran who's helped liberate Maldives from the scourge of, mercenaries and a coup?
Yeah, I can't understand the rationale behind it. It fails me actually, because India is we are neighbors.
Yes.
And we have always had very good relations, and we always come. Whenever Maldivians needed it, whether it's the 3rd November 1988 coup, whether it was Operation Need when they ran out of water in December 2014,
Yes.
whether it's tsunami, it was always India which came to the aid, and immediately without any conditions.
Right.
And also India is India is a country which is responsible, which is risen, and we have always gone in and helped our neighbors and always come out. Unlike
Yes.
many other nations who go in and never come out.
That's right. And the classic case of that, Anthony, is Bangladesh. I mean, the Indian army went in, they created a new nation of Bangladesh, and within a fortnight they were out.
Bangladesh, Sri Lanka,
Yes.
Maldives in any case, Nepal, if you see 1952 when Tribhuvan. So
Right.
we have always had we respected the sovereignty of our neighbors.
Yes.
Of our nation
So
states.
why, General Bhatia, then why is it that India is perceived as a big brother? Is it literally because we intimidate a lot of our smaller neighbors, or is it because possibly in this case, in the Maldivian case, that you have a bigger neighbor who's there, not so close neighbor, but China is the factor here, and the president is now in. Yeah.
Yeah, Sandeep, you hit the nail on the head. It's the China factor, because China has got, they have this strategy of debt trap.
Right.
There's a strategy of world diplomacy.
Yes.
And we practice sharp out. right?
Right.
Sharp power is either you're with us or you're against us.
Right.
A nation like Maldives, just 500,000 people, 11 islands, about 200 inhabited.
Yeah.
They have to attract economic aid.
Right.
And today, China is the one who gives the economic aid much more
Yeah.
than anyone else. But it comes at a cost, like Sri Lanka has seen, like many
Absolutely.
other countries in Africa have seen, countries in Europe have seen that. So
Right.
that comes at a cost, which I think the Maldivians, looking at the present, they're not looking at the mid to long term at all. They're
Right.
looking at the immediate near term, and they're going to come to grief. It's happened earlier,
Yeah.
and I hope it doesn't happen. But I anticipate this happening as you know, as a student of strategy.
Yes.
The writing on the wall that they'll have to pay a very heavy price for this at the hands of the Chinese, and
Right.
they'll come back like Sri Lanka did, others did,
Yeah.
to India for help.
In fact, Anthony, we
Assistance.
were talking
Not
about
help
debt.
assistance.
My colleague Anthony and me were just talking about Sri Lanka's debt trap diplomacy and, China's debt trap diplomacy that Sri Lanka would fallen into. Anthony, what's your take on this? Do you think that Maldives could be plunging into a similar situation? General Bhatia mentioned they're looking at the present, not the future.
I think history tends to repeat itself. And given the way that Sri Lanka has gone, we've seen the chaos.
Yeah.
We still remember, it's all fresh in our memory. Chinese aid comes at its own cost.
Right.
We all know why China does what it does. Its entire policy in this region has been to surround India through aid to other nations and to control them.
Yeah.
So, of course, I mean, if Sri Lanka has fallen to that, if Sri Lanka has fallen to this, Maldives could again be the next nation, of course. I mean, of course, as Sir said, writing is on the wall. I think future will only make us wiser. Sir, I again wanted to ask you, how, of course, we've seen how Chinese aid in this case has sort of crippled Sri Lanka, right? So do you see, what is the kind of timeline that you have in your mind in terms of Maldives? Do you think that this is something that's Maldives is inching closer to the Sri Lanka situation or the Sri Lankan crisis that we saw not very long ago?
Yeah, given the fact that President Muzu is in Beijing as we speak.
Yeah, it's a 5-day visit. And the indications which are coming out of Beijing is that the Maldivians are seeking aid,
Yeah.
and the cost of the aid is well known to us. And I think it'll be in the near term only. It's a year or two down the line when they'll be paying a very heavy price for it. But we also have to understand, Maldives have to understand this, Indians have to understand this, that we have lived peacefully for centuries together as nations, if not as states, because we are a new state and an old nation, old civilization. But the fact remains that most of the Maldivians prefer to come to India for medical treatment, for education.
Yes.
There were 5 Maldivians studying here for education out of a population of 500,000, which is big enough. And we are their immediate neighbors. And the Chinese, it really comes at a big cost. And even Pakistan is now rising that. Leave aside, Sri Lanka,
Yes.
the CPEC, it's not working well for Pakistan also. And Pakistan also is realizing that. I wonder how come Maldivians have not factored this in,
Right.
which is so obvious.
Absolutely. That's one of the most bizarre, questions that we've all been
And also
asking.
the boycott
Why?
also. Which is
Yeah,
now-
and then you're, calling for a boycott
Yeah.
as well, and of India. But General Bhatia, given the fact that the Maldivian president is in Sri Lanka, is in China as we speak, what are the possibilities that Maldives could give China a base there? And why would China require a base? Because in the Indian Ocean, they already have bases in Djibouti and in Gwadar in Pakistan. How would a base in Maldives help the Chinese and the PLA Navy?
The Maldivians, they complete the chain.
Right.
It is rumored, and I don't know if it's rumored or not, but it is there in many strategists writing about it. They want to create in one of the islands. They want to create 200-meter deep, sort of a port. That means that even the aircraft carrier can be, positioned there.
Right.
And that gives China a reach which is unimaginable, because
Right.
Maldives also happens to be on the sea lines of communication,
Yes.
coming from east to west and west to east, and dominates the Indian Ocean region in their own channels. The
Absolutely.
other channels. So China is looking at the long term, and it has given a bait to Maldives, which Maldives, for their own domestic reasons and for their own compulsions at the vertical level, are not able to refuse. And that is what the Chinese have done all along.
Right.
Whether you take Africa, whether you take South Asia, or even ASEAN countries and all. So that is what their strategy is all about. And still, for the present, we have sacrificed the future.
Absolutely, and it's very alarming what you just mentioned, General Bhatia, the fact that China could get a deep water base in Maldives. Even the possibility of that sounds so frightening, just 600 kilometers away from the Indian coastline. And not to mention, just north of the US base at Diego Garcia. But General Bhatia, now that we are in the situation that we are in, the ties are at possibly one of the lowest that they've ever been since that dramatic, heroic rescue that you carried out in 1988, you and your men. Where does that leave us? What are the options before India now? How do we take this forward?
See, I'm not saying that let's treat them as this is the India's philosophy and policies never interfere in a country's internal affairs.
Right.
We haven't done so. We may feel bad about it right now, but
Yeah.
I'm sure the Maldives, like it happened last time also when Soleil was there, they'll come back to they'll come back to India. We have to live together, and we have to live together always. And I think they'll come back to us with time, realize the mistake,
Right.
realize the follies, and they'll come back to India, and we'll have our relations will grow. It is people to people connect.
Yes.
There's a certain section which has been because of our social media and the information campaigns which nations carry out, especially China,
Right.
who have come to believe that their future is with China. Right? It is not so. With
Yes.
time, they will realize the mistake, and it will be back to India, it will be back to Sri Lanka, it will be back to Singapore. That is the natural affinity of the Maldivians is with Sri Lanka and India because they're the immediate neighbors.
Absolutely, and spoken like a true officer and a gentleman, General Bhatia, I must mention the fact that you, a person who's been at such a critical juncture in India's military history, part of a rescue, attempt, a successful rescue operation, Cactus. Last question before I go, General Bhatia, is why was it called Cactus? Was it because of the difficulty involved, or why wasn't it called, Operation Vijay, for instance? That seems to be the default setting for a lot of operations. Why Cactus?
We didn't know it was Cactus for a long time. We only came to it of Cactus after we had completed the operation. Because when you do an operation like this, it was all stations go, and we were just moving. Fortunately, we were so well trained, we were so well led.
Absolutely.
Brigade Abdul, the Brigade Joshi, RJ Jalan. The team just fell in the right place. And the men, not to talk of them, they're not restrained. They're not. Let me give credit to Group Captain Bevoor, the Air Force, the Navy came to being.
No, in fact,
it's militarization, Sandeep. But all three services actually played up, and we are so well. There's so much of cooperation.
It's possibly one of the first times since the 71 war, correct me if I'm wrong, General Bhatia, where all three services came together almost seamlessly. The Navy, the Army, the Air Force, you had Marine Commandos, all of them working seamlessly, hand in hand, without even a theatre command being in existence. That just tells you sometimes, like it's like the great Indian wedding. Things just happen and they come together, and everything's good.
That is India. That's that in the military also.
Yeah.
I remember. I recollect when I went to Brigade Balsar and said decision time.
Yes.
He says we land, and Group Captain Bevoor landed his aircraft with 176 men on board, with a lot of fuel on board, on an airstrip which was not even secured.
Yes.
We did not know even someone had put. Just imagine someone putting a jeep on that on the runway.
Absolutely.
What would happen to the complete aircraft, the complete operation, the complete load?
Right.
The risk taken by Group Captain Bevoor, hats off to him. It was his call.
And in
he
fact,
could easily said,
yes,
can I take a minute more?
Yes,
logically, militarily, there were three options.
Yeah.
Right. One option was to jump. We had the parachutes. Had that happened, 99% of us would have drowned in the ocean. Right. The most logical second option, the riskiest option, was to land. Right. Riskiest. And the third, the logical military option, was to get back to Trivandrum and launch the next day morning with a secret airfield. Right. But then, who dares wins? Fortune favors the brave.
Who dares wins? Fortune favors the brave, and who dares wins. And General Bhatia would be part of a very interesting episode of first person, where he narrates to us in very great detail what happened on those 16 hours over Malé. You can watch that in the next couple of days only on the News9 Plus show. But thank you very much, General Bhatia, for your thoughts and your time this evening on the News9 Plus show. We look forward to speaking to you more often. Thank you very much, sir.
News9 Plus. Download now.